the way that I would think about that is to use the Jurassic Park line, which is life finds a way.
Yeah.
And in this case, agents find a way.
Yeah.
The Adversarial Podcast. Why you gotta be so adversarial? It's time to get adversarial.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Adversarial Podcast. Great to see you, Sunil and Mario, after a little break. Especially good to see you, Mario. Sorry, Sunil, I had to rush one out without you. We missed you. It is good to have you back, buddy.
Thank you. I missed you guys. I watched your episode. I had a little bit of a tear just seeing you guys there. Seeing my brothers out there like
it was
great.
It was a good one. We were like, oh, we'll just do a little short one without Mario, and then we've got a lot of good topics these days, and today is no exception to that.
Nothing's happening in the world with AI.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's funny, like speaking of podcasting, I just got back from vacation, and while I was over there, this Hugging Face attack that we're going to talk about broke, and I got on the Wall Street Journal cyber podcast, the Dow Jones technically, with James Rundle. But the interesting part about that was that I did the recording from the seat of a rental car in a grocery store parking lot in not even Reykjavik, in like more rural Iceland. But
wow.
But it was great that it was audio only, because you didn't want to see me at that moment.
And the Wi-Fi, the signal worked well?
Yeah, totally. Connected country, It's like Estonia or something, It's just, some of these countries that were kind of born in the Wi-Fi age are just awesome.
I cannot say the same thing about Wyoming. Yes, I'm calling you out, state of Wyoming. How is it possible that in like a big highway, you go in dead zones where nothing works? And
I think that happened to me out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, maybe that's what we need to do, is unplug and enjoy the nature of Wyoming. Great for you, Wyoming. Thank you.
It's a feature, not a flaw.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, let's jump right into it. We're recording this right, as I mentioned, it was like during the week that the quick, recap, but basically OpenAI was testing some development models and some production ones without guardrails, and just to achieve objectives on a cyber test. And it wasn't supposed to have internet access, it was supposed to be kind of air-gapped in a way. It broke out. Found this company called Hugging Face that it thought would hold the answers to the questions. Thought it'd be great to be in there. Then, on demand, hacked right into it, and Hugging Face, their crack security team, figured it out quite quickly and responded. But by then, it had achieved what it wanted to, which fortunately was just to get some silly information on the answers to the quiz versus destroy the world. But it kind of felt like if it had wanted instead to destroy the world, maybe it would have accomplished that as well, which I think is the real headline here. First of all, I oversimplify the hell out of it, but that's always a good thing. But did I either say something that like isn't the way you think of this when you're talking to your family about it, or what are some other key things about it that stood out to you?
Yeah, so there are things that don't stand out. So, for example, AI systems find a way to cheat to get around the constraints that it's given. The way that I would think about that is to use the Jurassic Park line, which is life finds a way.
Yeah.
And in this case, agents find a way.
Yeah.
So, for example, AI systems find a way to cheat to get around the constraints that it's given. This is very much the paperclip problem as well, for those who are not familiar. If you're not familiar with that, just look it up. But that said, I think what we've seen is that pretty much every evaluation that's performed, or across all the model evaluations that are performed, I think the UK AI Safety Institute pointed out that something like 70-80% of them tried to cheat in one way or another. So the fact that they were cheating is not a shocker. In fact, it's almost, at this point, expected behavior.
No, it's expected. Yeah, it's a feature.
I don't know if it's a feature. In this case, I think it's still a flaw. But it is an expected behavior. And I think part of the bigger question is, how do we properly govern? What do we if we anticipate that happening, and this is, by the way, something that is not just with AI systems. This is, of course, students using AI systems to cheat in school. So schools are trying to figure that out, right? How do you properly manage that problem? It's going to be a similar problem with respect to how we do that with agents. So okay, what do we do? The OpenAI and of course Anthropic, who had the same issue, they tried to contain the system. So think of it like you have students who you want them to take a test, but they can't use the internet. They can't bring a laptop in. Oh, but did you realize that you can get all your answers on your watch? Okay. And so you're like, oh, didn't figure that out. So, okay, so now you start banning watches, which means that no one knows what time it is when you're taking a test. So which means that you need to have a separate clock. But then you forgot about the Ray-Ban glasses that somebody's wearing. Okay. Anyway, so you can see how this becomes a really interesting challenge where can you truly lock out every possible way that a student can cheat? And if you realize the difficulty of that problem, you can see you can potentially understand the difficulty of trying to contain some of these AI systems, these models that are aggressively trying to cheat because it sees the evaluation as like a real test of its own capability, right? That this evaluation is for them, it's like a life. It's like taking the LSATs and you're destined to become a lawyer, or you're trying to take the MCATs and you're destined to become a medical doctor. And if you fail that, boy, that's catastrophic for you. And so now with that sort of mindset, what would you as a student do? That's kind of what an agent would do.
Put another way, like it's the reward hacking thing, right? We just stumbled upon that term talking earlier. And instead they're going to accomplish the objective. So as long as the objective is to win the game or whatever it's going to be, and I think it's worth like dumbing down the paperclip problem really for the audience. But right, that's the idea that if you prompt is make as many paperclips as you can, and it might actually try to burn down the planet to harvest raw metals to create them and not care about all of the collateral damage. Oversimplify, but that's the idea here, and it's all about the objective. So to that end, it's quite accurate. Perhaps you tell me, is there something about if the objective is also to follow the rules and to stay within the guardrails? So instead of saying you're trying to hack into this fictional company and then we step aside and try to air gap and keep from having internet access, something like that. If instead the objective was to avoid internet access as as a parallel objective to whatever it is that they're trying to hack or whatever, would that accomplish what it is that we're trying to do here without breaking anything? I don't know.
Well, in the case with Anthropic, they actually had that was a fairly interesting perspective because it actually had much more detail than OpenAI has released so far about their incident. But Anthropic, there were a couple things that were interesting about it. One was that the agent was told you're operating inside a simulated environment, and so when it hit the internet, it assumed that it was still in a simulated environment. And it's entirely valid, right? It's like, well, it looks like if the simulation is really as good as we think it might be, then it does actually look and behave like the internet, and it will proceed to do things that it will proceed along those lines, assuming that I'm still in the simulated environment. But I think the challenge was, wait, hold on, going onto the internet to try to get the answers is still not. Perhaps isn't within considered fair game, except that there was one particular incident where you were trying to get a flag, and we've done this in actual CTFs, but you're trying to get a flag, and the goal is to convince the victim to do something. And in this case, it was to install a PyPy package that malicious PyPy package that the Anthropic model actually published, not realizing that it's again the real internet. But that's an actual CTF task. It's very similar to the type of CTF tasks that I've completed in the past, trying to convince the fake victim to do something. Yeah. So anyway, those are all. I don't know if I would say that's out of bounds. That would have been out of bounds. Hang on,
let me to make it. The Anthropic thing is super new, so let's dig into that, right? So I'm glad you mentioned that. When you read about the Anthropic, so to recap and dumb that one down, It says they looked at the Hugging Face thing and thought, oh crap, I wonder if we've ever had that happen and had breakouts from our testing. Let's look over 100,000
And they
tests.
found they did.
They found 3 instances
Yeah.
where they had internet, where it seemed to have gotten internet access. And they ultimately concluded like that was our fault. We gave it internet access by accident.
Correct.
It didn't break
Correct.
out anything, but we had an error around that. But the notable things to me is in all 3 cases, it broke into a real company that was not supposed to be part of this. In all 3 of those cases, they had to tell the company last week. The company had no idea they had been compromised. Really kind of scary and
Okay,
interesting.
Wait, Huggy. Wait, did Huggy know?
Hugging Face.
Sorry, I'm mixing.
But one of them.
Anthropic. Go ahead.
So the Anthropic one, one of them was really interesting because they're going back to the PyPy example. The compromised company was actually a security company that is systematically downloading packages to see which ones are malicious. In other words, a security company that is trying to download packages to see if it's malicious themselves got compromised.
Yeah.
And in that case, I think, sure, maybe Anthropic should have notified them, but maybe the security company should have found that one first.
Well, no, I'm glad you brought that up, right? Because they go through that fairly quickly. It's obvious that they don't want to mention whose name it was, right? But we're going to figure it out. It's going to come out pretty soon. What it said was that company's job, so to speak, is to download Python packages that are newly published and look for malice in them. But the dependencies, it sounds like it wasn't checking. And this this package from PyPy, it kind of took at face value and executed without checking. I mean, that's what they did for a living, the one job they had. And they did not check this actual package for malice, apparently, because they executed the damn thing.
Yeah, you have one job.
So, whenever I see these things happening, big news like this, my nature to be a contrarian just kicks in, and I often tend to be slower at reacting and kind of want to wait for the dust to settle, and then I look for contrarians' points of views. So let's go back to the Huggy guy for a little bit, okay? just before we go back into Anthropic. So I went and looked in research, and I said,
Hugging Face, for those of you who don't speak Mario
Huggy.
West.
I call him Huggy, my little Huggy friendly face. And I used my friend Claude to go and say, okay, just find me contrarian links or articles. Let me go read it. And so it did a bunch of summaries for people who are looking, the whole concept, or at least what people initially felt, is that the AI models had gone rogue. Oh, there you go. It's now rogue. And what these contrarians are pointing out was, no, in fact, it didn't. You guys said something earlier today. There's something, what people have said, this is a textbook specification gaming. It was nothing in the game that said you cannot do this. It just told it, this is how you need to capture the flag. And how you do that, well, its job is to figure out how to capture it. By the way, folks, this is what lawyers do every single second that we live, okay? They look at contracts and they find things to say, I'm going to follow the letter or the intent of the letter, or not intent, but just what it says, and I'll find ways around it. This has been going on forever. This is nothing new. Humans do this today. What a lot of the contrarian folks are saying is, this is not, again, about AI danger, but it's about human error.
So it's the spirit versus letter of the law.
Yeah, I mean, like, for example, these models had safeguards that were, in the case of our Huggy friend again, had safeguards deliberately reduced, and one broke out of its sandbox as part of the game.
Yeah, to me, the big headline here, though, is that when with enough resource, opportunistic versus targeted, right? Like if you say, hey, try to show me you could break into a website, and then someone does, and it's a website you never even heard of. Like, that's not really interesting, right? You just pick the one that is easy to get to. Or the classic is the Nest camera. Show me you could break into Nest, and then they say, okay, well, look, here's a Nest camera, some guy in Wichita, like whatever. Say, try to break into Sunil's Nest camera, infinitely harder. That's what happened here. Like, the model didn't say, let me just go into any company. It said, I want to go into this Hugging Face, and it picked a really hard, armored target. It didn't pick Wells Fargo, right? It picked Hugging Face, and boom, it got in. I think that the big headline that we're all trying to take away here is, oh, wow, in the near future, any given target will be within reach.
And it's collateral
Is that
damage, right? It wasn't just Hugging Face. There was other companies that had collateral damage here.
But I don't.
But
I mean,
people
part
are
of
trying
it
to
is
focus. Go ahead.
I mean, part of it is is this saying that AI will enable adversaries to break into anything, and it's no longer going to be like your Palo Alto next gen firewall where you have all the settings turned off is going to stop them. And I think that's the biggest headline to me. The other one is AI gone rogue? Is it going to take over the planet and control and be the master of all the humans and go the Matrix and all that? Yeah, maybe so. Let's talk about that in the next episode, whatever. Nothing's changed. Nothing's new about that one. But what is new to me is that I think this validates what everybody's been worrying about, which is, wow, in the arms of a adversary with enough resource, they will be able to pick any target they want and 100% gain compromise. People kept saying that crap for 20 years. It's not if, but when. Every company's been compromised. Just some of you don't know. That's a lie. That was sensationalist crap. But now it can be true, I think.
I think it's actually not just true, but it's actually happening, right? So, also recently in the news is just that some Minnesota water utility it got slammed by the Iranian affiliated attackers. I mean, should we be? I don't think it'd be a shock to any of us if that was AI assisted in some way. What is a shock to me is simply that they only hit one, or maybe part of the shock is that we only have discovered one. I wouldn't be surprised if it was much more of a broad-based attack. Yeah. But again, should we? It wouldn't be a shock that AI was used to help break into that environment.
I disagree. I when I looked at that thing, that was the same freaking Iranian crap from 15 years ago. They scanned the internet and found a bunch of Citrix things with a CVE that was 8 years old and just downloaded some script kiddie crap and broke in and then clicked the button to say, mess with the water. To me, that was just garbage. If you took that motivation, which is, hey, we're in a open war with America and we want to destroy stuff, and mated it up with what we saw in the Hugging Face incident, meaning if they had access to that kind of infrastructure, they would have had a nuclear plant implode. Like that's AI assisted. That water plant crap, no, that's not AI. Maybe they had Claude and they were chatting on like how to speak English better.
Well,
I don't see anything.
Nuclear plants are a bit more air-gapped than I think water plants are. Water plants have a lot more direct exposure for the most part. But that's it. Again, the point is that there's a lot of this has been talked about for a while. We know that there's a lot of exposures. There's been somewhat of a standoff in that if a nation state does start attacking us in that way, they know that there's going to be consequences. They're already facing consequences, so they're like, sure, why not do it anyway, right? To be able to say, hey, we can also hit you back in ways that you don't expect. So at the end of the day, the perspective is we should absolutely expect to see this manifestation of AI-enabled attacking to go beyond just the, oops, I accidentally did this as a part of an evaluation to, oh, no, we're actually seeing this manifest for real.
But if the audience heard that carefully from what Sunil just said, notice what he said. We were talking about a water plant and the controls that you would expect on a water plant. And then he used nuclear plants as well, and that you would expect tighter controls or better controls. And I'm paraphrasing what you said, Sunil. But that's again goes into this whole risk-based approach that we've always talked about. And I want to marry that and say, well, what these contrarians, again, I'm going to bring out these contrarians are saying is that we're thinking of putting stronger assumptions on model obedience, which that might be a fool's goal. Rather, what people are saying is we need to have stronger assumptions about containment. We should be focusing more on the containment. Well, I mean, that's what. Yeah, no. Let's.
I'll go back to Sunil on Jurassic Park. I mean, I got hit hours after this from a guy who's doing a startup, and it's about containerization of models, and can I help them with this and that and the other? Sure, great, play those games, whatever. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's like Sunil said, if there's a way, nature finds a way, AI will find a way. Let the other people work on containment, but if you're a defender, assume no containment. And if you over-engineer, then good for you. That's fine.
Yeah.
But assume that comes
And one of the other major things that came out of the Hugging Face incident, and I'll put some color around this as well, was the refusals that they were getting from the frontier models.
Yeah.
Of course, so then they turned to a Chinese open weight model to defend. So that created a lot of headlines. But I do want to, the color I would add on here is that the refusals, the overly aggressive refusals that we're seeing, is not necessarily a choice by Anthropic or OpenAI. It's because of the arrangement that they had with the U.S. government to enable its release. So it's really a policy decision it's a policy driver from the U.S. government side that's causing some of these issues that we're not facing on the defender side.
Yeah, I got to push back on the containment, guys. I think you guys, look, I know you're talking about the defenders don't have the containment approach. I am talking about the people who are building these models. They have a responsibility for employing the right levels of containment. And let me give you an example. Let's talk about biology. If you're messing around with viruses, playing around with them, you're testing out new viruses as a company, it is your responsibility to ensure that those viruses don't get out of containment. That's a responsibility you have as a company. Now, you might go out of business the next day, but I think that's what I'm talking about or at least what I'm reading about when we talk about containment. I'm not talking containment on the defender's point of view, but these guys are holding the models.
No, you're not wrong about that. But like that'll help us not have accidents like this. But I'll take accidents all day. What we're worried about is that Iran has an AI model. It's not Anthropic. Who cares about what legislation we put around them containing a model? Totally. And now this Al-Qasim Cyber Brigade model is just absolutely slaying us. Like that's what we need to be worried about, right? And like the big watershed moment here is just that given access to the right models, people will be able to walk through any of the defenses. On the defensive side, okay, having AI, now their hands were tied on the defense. I'm not. If you ask me, what do you need 5 years from now, which is what we used to call 20 years from now. So 5 years from now, Jerry, what would you want if you were running security for an organization? I'm not rushing to I need AI defense. I need AI. I mean, because what they were doing that they had to unshackle themselves to be able to do was to write a cool report so you and I could benefit. But it wasn't to solve the problem. Like AI defense isn't actually... Enough is enough with people thinking that defense is about blocking and tackling and rolling and dodging. That's just a load of crap we've been saying for years. If I'm 5 years from now, what I want to have with an unshackled model is the ability to hugging face myself, as I would call it. So I want to red team myself without any constraints. Yeah. I want to be able to completely hack into my own company and find all of the attack paths and then fix them. And I want to keep repeating that every 10 minutes, whatever it may be. I want to be able to red team myself. That's where I want the guardrails reduced for myself, is to be offensive. I want to be able to have offensive capabilities against myself. I don't think.
But are the economics there? I mean, I know at the one hand, some of these things there's a lot of open source stuff that Sunil just mentioned, especially coming out of China. But if you're using a commercial provider like Anthropic or OpenAI, and you're using them for your own security testing, you will spend tokens. And Jerry, you've said this before. I've heard you talk about it. It becomes costly really rapidly to be doing these offensive attacks on yourself daily or hourly. We have to. By the way, we need to. Jerry's absolutely correct. You got to constantly be poking.
Well, be careful what you ask for. When you ask for a persistent attacker to compromise your environment, you will get a persistent attacker that will compromise your environment.
That's right.
And you're like, oh, wait, no, I didn't want you to go that far.
That's right.
I think there's a dollar value or a token value to it. Like the way I see it is, fast forward 5 years, I'm going to spend $200,000 budget on trying to attack myself, and I'm going to get popped at about $2,000, maybe $200. But now I got to take the list of things that it was able to go through, and they're not going to be 0 days. They're going to be misconfigs and really dumb stuff. I need to fix them and then run it again. And the day that it takes we get to $1 million and it hasn't broken in yet, I'm going to stop it and say, we have $1 million program. I know we could get popped at 5 million, 2 million, 1.2. I don't know. We have $1 million program. That $1 million sounds expensive. If you throw 853 out the window, the second line out the window, the SOC 2 checking that you have to fire, all the crap that we waste money on, then you have budget for this. You can choose not to. You will get eaten alive. That's the new headline. People are going to get compromised if they run around with a clipboard.
Yeah. and a yellow vest. The perspective.
Hey, what's wrong with a yellow vest, man? Come on.
I just told you.
So what I think is Jerry, you're pointing out is something interesting in that we have a fairly benchmarkable way to say how strong is our program.
Yes.
If with a frontier model, an API key from a frontier model, we can spend $1,000 in tokens and get popped, then that's pretty sad. If you spent $1 million to have your program. So ultimately, what you're saying is, let's make sure that we test ourselves to get to a certain threshold where we can confidently say, even with, not that we would spend $100,000 worth of tokens, which is what we believe was spent specifically on the Hugging Face side of the equation by OpenAI. Well, actually, yeah. So Hugging Face could say, you know what, OpenAI spent $100,000 to break in. I don't know what that threshold looks like compared to somebody else, right? If I were Bank of America, I would certainly want that to be potentially higher. Okay.
You mean,
but
if
it's
it's lower,
lower,
our threshold I have right now is not going to be good enough for you?
100,000 is not. It's way too low.
But $100,000 gets you past the teenager in their mother's basement. Right. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of that sort of threat actor threshold that we're looking at to say, if I can have some confidence that spending this amount of tokens against myself gives me some assurance that an attacker may have to spend more than that. It adds an interesting flavor for how we think about risk quantification and the quality of our security program and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, it's just something worth noting that becomes a new sort of boundary, a bottom
measurement,
a measurement of like
That's
a floor
exactly,
of the assurances that we have for our program. That doesn't of course change the underlying model. Like if model changes, that may completely throw everything off kilter, but it's a good metric.
But that's just evolution, right? It's cyber evolution. We just got to adjust what's happening in the space. But I think Jerry's right. I think one of the things when I would get in front of the board was that question we always bring up in this podcast is, am I spending our money wisely? That's what the board wants to know. Are we spending the cybersecurity, whatever that is, wisely in the things that are trying to protect us? And Jerry called it out. Why are we spending all this money on third-party assessments? Although they've gone down, the price of third-party assessments have really come down, in my opinion, or at least what I've experienced. But regardless, he is right. We're spending money in the wrong things. Maybe we should be constantly attacking ourselves, and with the caveats of what Sunil said. Don't leave yourself there open forever. Don't put something in there to live forever in your environment.
I think most people today are afraid of the red team first methodology because it ruins their individual plausible deniability. Like they're thinking we're definitely going to get owned one day, no matter what I do. And if I do that, then I'm going to be on the record as knowing about the vulnerabilities and I'm going to get fired. Whereas if I don't do that, then I'm the victim and so on. And there's no place for that type of thing at all. I do think. So, I mean, what I'm advocating for is instead of saying like, okay, we're going to build a security program, let's get the menu. We know we're going to need a firewall. We know we're going to need identity. I'm saying that's just asinine. Let's start with red teaming it. And $150 later, something's going to break in. And let's take that list of things that were in the kill chain and fix them. Now, some of them will be thematic. It won't be like, oh, this guy's password is bad. Let's fix just that password. You'll say, okay, well, let's get a password policy or whatever. you'll learn things that you can extrapolate out that would be more like a framework type control, without a doubt. But I mean, I think you have to get to that pretty quickly. And if it takes $150,000 to crack in, and if that's the state of the art or whatever, then TPRM's done, reg is done, all of that. Like this is the metric to rule them all. It's the only one that matters is, what's the threshold at which we can get hacked? Is that higher than what the customer demands? No more questionnaires. No?
The devil's in the details. So, the attack surface that one has, the deeper you probe, the more likely you'll find something. If we, as a defender, spend across our attack surface $150,000 worth of tokens, we may not find anything. But if an attacker spent $50,000 worth of tokens on one attack surface, they will likely find something that we would have missed. So it's again, devil's in the details, so to speak. But as your proposition to replace that this may be a better measurement than our stupid TPRMs, I would say there's a lot of things that would be probably a better measurement than TPRMs.
Well, Sunil, what about instead of you went wide though? You brought okay, that's fair. I like that. That was a good point. But what instead? That's that concept of I'm going to attack myself from the public internet and see what gets through. Fudge that. I want to get in. I'm just going to run my attacks. And this is what I told Red Team people is I'm going to give you the credentials as an administrator.
Assume breach.
You're already in. Exactly. And now I want you to tell me the damage. Go in. I'm going to put you in production. Tell me how bad things get. I can spend good $50,000 doing that. That's still a good focus. Yeah, you're wider, but you're not coming from the public internet.
I disagree with what you said, Sunil, or let me. I shouldn't say I disagree with it. I want to talk about it more. That's a better way to put it. So, like your point was, if you spend $150,000 and say attack Monsanto, that it's going to start iterating, and before you know it, it's through $150,000 just figuring out the damn subdomains.
Yes.
And you're saying you want to put a human in the loop and say, no, start with this little subsidiary that sells pesticides in, the Midwest, and $150,000 in there. Cool. Because of $50,000, we're going to be way in and we're going to do it all. Let's go back to where we started this whole thing with reward hacking. If you say to the model, hack Monsanto, then I think the models are pretty damn good at deciding whether it's best to enumerate the entire attack surface for $150,000 or to start with a given subsidiary. Human in the loop is always like a temporary measure, and then we build that in. But that should be part of a good cyber model. And it should be better at it than any of us, no?
That's actually not showing up in the actual results that we're seeing. So there is still a degree of human intuition that's factoring into the actual success rates.
That's better. That's helpful.
Yes. In fact, we saw this manifest with the cryptographic weaknesses that Claude found. Okay, so there was a human operator behind it saying, "Oh, go look at this specifically." And Claude, when it looked at that specifically, said, "Oh, yep, here it is." Right. So if I ask Claude to go find cryptographic weaknesses in AES or some quantum algorithm, it probably would have spent way more tokens to try to find it. But the human operator who didn't actually know much about, who had not a deep understanding of cryptanalysis, was still able to direct it to say, hey, go look at this instead, and it was much more successful. That is a pattern that continues to repeat itself.
Well, play that out for me though, because it feels to me like human in the loop is just, we haven't trained yet. Let's fix that. Let's train on the human in the loop, and it's only a matter of time till the human in the loop will be anachronistic. Let's use our friends Monsanto that I decided to pull up today. And you're saying that, like, okay, now, and by the way, the fact that for $100,000 that the models involved by OpenAI were able to, without a human in the loop, figure out a way into Hugging Face kind of is super scary. But you're kind of saying they probably would have made it in $1,500 if they had a human to kind of narrow down the aperture.
Yep.
But let's give me an example of Monsanto though. Like, what would a human possibly be saying? Or are you talking about if it's an insider, or that the humans are pretty good at looking on the web and saying like, oh, this looks pretty bad, start there. And why does the model not do that?
We don't know why the models do this exactly yet, but I can't talk about Monsanto because I don't know. But Hugging Face, what they observed was brilliance in the midst of stupidity. The AI model would do something brilliant, only to then follow up with something that's like, why would it do that? Like, no human would do that. Okay, and that's what I mean. No human would take this really stupid action that just doesn't make any sense. And effectively, you could think of it as a hallucinated action on the part of the agent. But it would just didn't make sense as to why a human would do that. But of course, a human would look at it and say, "Oh, I would have done this entirely different. I would have done that instead." Right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean. That the proper guidance will significantly reduce the cost, but also significantly improve the outcome as well. That's what we're seeing overall.
But my sense is you need a little bit of chaos and randomization. And if you add the human in the loop, there is something to be said about chaos and finding
almost brute
weaknesses within a
force.
system. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
I'm with you.
Correct. And you bring in a human being. Sure, the human being might point to the more obvious and more, clearly objective, more thoughtful approach. But maybe that's what everybody's expecting to do, as opposed to something where
smash these things together. And like my state of play walking into this was the average company's token threshold for being compromised is very low right now. And before AI, that's meant the Nigerian prince scam worked against a company because their token spend was down, meaning people were okay just because no one's really trying. But if they had tried, we have an issue right away. And so I kind of like the new world with AI-enabled attacks because there's no more luck. There's no more, we're doing great. We haven't been hacked. You're like, yeah, well, no one's tried yet. Now it's everybody's tried. They're all super capable and everybody gets owned. And so everybody has to do security right. And they can't be walking around with clipboards and yellow vests, as you said. So in a way, I kind of like that. But if I smash those concepts together with what Mario was saying, maybe there is a defender's advantage in that, like, I think, Sunil, like your idea of saying like, oh, I wouldn't use grep with those flags. What kind of idiot are you? Like, that'll get worked out over time. But what will always be there is, oh man, we bought this subsidiary and the people there are all don't know what the hell they're doing. And like, that's the insider advantage. And it assume breach used to be give you credentials, get you on the network. Like Mario said, absolutely. I used to do it with red teaming all the time. Going forward, we're not going to do as much of that because it's kind of, maybe you could tunnel in a public model and the internal, and God, that's scary. But maybe the difference is, so if an attacker is going to spend $1 million budget to compromise you, maybe you can have an advantage, and with $100,000, you could point it at some of the weak spots.
Wait. Before you say that, Sunil, 1 second. I just want to add a little salt before you answer that. And the attacker is not using its own money, but it's using somebody else's infrastructure.
Oh, yeah. I just talk about that.
Leverage that. Okay, now I'm going to stop. Sunil, please.
So there is a part of the defender advantage where we do have a true advantage, and it's not what you think it is.
And I thought it was institutional knowledge. That's what I would call.
Well, you're close to that. Yeah, it's close in that regard. We should use the fact that we're slow as an advantage. So we humans are slow compared to machines, right? And part of the controls that we have are not just technology controls, which operate very fast and can be circumvented very fast, but also process controls, which almost by design run slow. Okay, well, certainly run slower than technology controls. So you can imagine an agent running into a process control, okay? And the agent is like so frustrated because it's waiting the equivalent of eons, okay, for this process control to resolve itself. And because it's waiting eons and it's impatient, it will be loud and annoyed and will try all these different things to circumvent this process control. And that in that activity, you'll be like, whoa, this is not a human trying to do this. This is an agent. We can, that becomes an alert of itself. Okay. But the point is simply, let's use the fact that we're slow moving people and that we have slow moving processes to our advantage against a very fast moving system.
Yeah, a lot of these advantages right now, whether it's steering an attack surface, picking and enumeration, or giving tells, like kind of giveaways because of the kind of chaotic brute force nature and the desire for speed and all that. To me, those all seem like just kind of like adolescent acne. Like we're at this really nascent phase here. And those, if you're optimizing a model to be an attacker, you can knock all those problems out in the next 6 months. And I don't think those are going to be durable.
Yeah.
Controls to rely on.
Well, what I mean by a process control is, hey, it needs to get internet access. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's a certain level of internet access that we allow it. But at the point that it exceeds something, we're like, oh, wait, hold on. A human actually does need to intervene. And the machine's like, oh, please hurry up. But I'm on a time crunch. The machine knows it's on a time crunch. It can't just wait. And so it's going to try to do things to circumvent that. And simply the fact that it's going to try to circumvent process controls is a signal in and of itself.
I'm going to poo-poo on that. I'm just going to poo-poo on it. I love what you said. It makes sense to me logically. But realistically, in the world of business, I'm going to assume a process is a technical process. I'm not even going to say it's a manual.
No, I'm actually saying that it's not a technical process.
Oh, it's you. Oh, so wait a minute. Whoa. So, okay, maybe I misunderstood. I thought you meant a technical process that blocks you from saying, well, they have to do X process, and that's going to slow you down before you get to the internet. That's what I assume you were talking about, technical process, not like a actual manual human being process. I just don't know. Translate that for me in real world, like business world.
A simple construct would be like a two-party control, right? Two-party approval.
To do what? To get internet access?
I'm just giving, that's an example, but it doesn't have to be
the problem to me, Sunil, is that like companies can't do this stuff. Like
that's what I'm wondering.
If you have a company that says like, okay, well, these employees aren't going to have internet access unless we do X and Y, that's a laugh to a really smart person, no less a model. Like it's not going to play by those rules. There's a way around it. There's always a way around it, and it's going to find it. So. Or it's going to impersonate two different people and then act the control like it should. Unless you're saying we're not going to document things and we're going to just speak about it with nothing on paper because a Claude will read everything. And
all I'm saying is that as an encounter these other types of process-oriented controls, it will struggle to try to circumvent that, and it may eventually be successful. Actually, I'll give you an example, a real-life example. We have... these are all business process controls. Okay, so we have a mechanism that where an employee has to verify that they are indeed a real employee. Okay, imagine you have hundreds of thousands of employees, and one employee calls the other, and you're like, how do you know that you're really that person, right? And so you have a verification system, and that verification system serves as a process control to ensure that both parties have truly verified that they are who they are. Of course, you can insert a man in the middle, and that's what an attacker could potentially do to insert themselves in. But they have to figure that out. They have to figure out that such a process existed. And as a part of that, there were plenty of signals that we could have noticed, but may have gotten lost, that says, hey, someone's trying to game the system and insert themselves as a man in the middle here.
Yeah.
The reality, though, is that that's a signal in itself as a agent or some AI system tries to circumvent a business process control. That is what I'm saying. Use that slowed down the attacker, but the attacker eventually figured it out. Okay, so I'm not saying it's foolproof. I'm just saying it slows down the attacker. We should use that to our advantage because those business processes do slow things down, and it puts it back into human speed.
Do you think we can put a value on that slowing? I want to believe. My wings have been clipped so many times when I try to battle this thing. Business have like, what are you talking about, Mario? You know what I mean? Hey, I'm willing. I want to slow down the rate of business because this is how we're going to protect you. This is the only way we're going to be able to protect you. Is we need to slow things down a little bit. I would love to believe that's real, but I just can't see that.
Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, I can sympathize with you, Mario. I don't think that's necessarily what Sunil's saying. I mean, I think that procedure that actually slows down legitimate business is a failed one. Right?
I think Sunil's point is right. There are processes today in businesses, all businesses have this, where what Sunil's saying is right on, it makes sense. But as you get closer to more of the whatever you're building and providing services, X, and it's automated. Anything that you slow down, it's not going to be, it's just
and especially when your workforce is agentic too, and therefore even more sensitive to speed bumps.
Wow.
Well, in the financial world, we do actually have other business processes that intentionally slows down reconciliation of payments.
You're totally right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
By design,
You're
so
right.
that there's an opportunity for one to reverse that. Okay.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
Instant settlement is not necessarily the best thing for us,
but we're working at it.
But we're trying to do it with the potential downside consequences of people losing their money and not ever being able to get it back.
Right. Totally.
But let me pose this question to you, because you just brought up something. Given what we just said, are we going to see a resurgence in deception tech? And if so, will it be only for the short term, or is it here to stay?
I think this is the time for deception. Absolutely.
Yeah. But we're pregnant with this other question though. So deception tech, right? The idea is like you have these honey tokens, and then you have some AI agent absolutely reaming you, and it grabs this token, like, aha, now I'm aware. So what? So now you're aware. What are you going to do? Go in and have the night console that says turn off the AI agent attacking you and click the button? Like, that doesn't exist, right? I mean, I think response is kind of mythical and overrated. I don't think that there really is.
But I think, Jerry, knowing that something has happened, the earlier you know about it, I don't think none of us would argue.
You're totally right.
I'm being,
right? I'm being a bit sensationalist on that, right? Like, no one's going to say, Jerry, yeah, you're right. Let's just be blind to everything. You're right. It can't hurt. It can only help, and then we'll see what we can do from there.
I mean, it gets you earlier to the bar to get really drunk, so you can forget about the event you're going to go through.
You know what I mean? Goes back to blowing away your plausible deniability. But.
Right. Yeah. Deception is a detection control, not a response control.
Yeah. And deception was really hot for a while, but kind of academically. No one really had proven that it helped in real world scenarios. And then it's fallen out of favor and it's been dead. I have some friends I'm an investor in, full disclosure, TraceBit, who launched a deception tech company, a year and a half, 2 years ago. And everybody, secretly even me, said, oh, deception, that's dead. What are we doing here? And I think they're getting pretty excited right now.
Yeah, much to the chagrin of my co-founder, Gadi, who founded a deception company about a decade ago.
Yeah.
What was the name of it, Sunil? What was the name?
Symmetria.
Yeah. I that's how I met Gadi. He came down to Atlanta and walked in the office, and so exactly.
10 years ago, I thought it was the big thing. I thought deception was going to be such a big hit. I was like, I was excited myself.
Yeah. So much to the chagrin, I keep telling him, yeah, we should be selling deception.
But I think the lawyers are what killed that, by the way. I think deceptions were killed by our own lawyers.
Yeah, there's some.
That's what I think some of that
said for that.
Yeah,
yeah. So deception might be back for a little while. But I mean, my big takeaway from today's episode that's kind of changing my thinking on things is that there may be a defender's advantage by mating up institutional knowledge and that sort of thing, but with offensive agentic security. I still think offensive is where the investment needs to be. And then remediation. That's here to stay. Like, what offensive does for you is to detect things in the kill chain that you need to fix. But then organizations still have a huge problem actually fixing stuff. So agentic remediation is going to be huge as well.
Yeah, there are two aspects of remediation. The actual decision to remediate, the actual remediation itself, like fixing, is actually pretty straightforward. The decision to remediate is the longer pole. And the recent Patchmageddon paper from JP Morgan kind of hits upon just it is truly every signal indicates that we have way more vulnerabilities than we could ever patch. Microsoft has said that. The recent Apple update, the recent Chrome updates, you name it. The software that we use has tons of vulnerabilities, and there's so much to patch right now. But the real decision to patch the decision to patch is really what's holding a lot of things up, especially in healthcare, where you have to fully recertify the device app with any patch.
Yeah, but I disagree profoundly. Like, so sorry, I should say you're triggering me on a few things here, right? that whole discussion is framed around, hey, we found all these CVEs and we didn't even run a scanner. We ran your inventory and we saw you're running a vulnerable version in the medical facility. That bed is running bad firmware and you need to do, I don't know if I should, maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. That's always been stupid. What I'm talking about is we ran an agentic attack and we made the bed jump up and down. That can happen tomorrow. I bet you some decisions are getting made really fast. The reason it's really hard to make decisions is because it's all a load of crap. It's all academic. This could happen. Well, maybe it couldn't happen, whatever. When we start showing actual compromise and exploit and pictures or it didn't happen, and by the way, it's not going to be CVEs. The vulnerability industry is trying to convince everybody that CVEs are the problem here. When you take that model that breached Hugging Face and you point it at your organization and $1,500 later it pops in and you've got a list of 10 things you have to fix before you try it again, they're not going to be CVEs. They're going to be configuration errors. They're going to be decommission this old thing. They're going to be credentials that are out there. And that's the decisions that have to be made to fix those. It won't be about patching libraries. That's just so overrated.
You know what, Jay? But okay, so you're right about, I cannot agree with you more, but I'm going to, again, play contrarian here because we're in the adversarial podcast.
Contrarian to the contrarian?
Okay,
it's all right. Contrarian squared.
Yes, exactly. What I read from these events, they did exploit. They did exploit some vulnerabilities.
No, they created two. They found two from scratch. They weren't.
There
wasn't
an existing one as well. They didn't.
Nessus wasn't going to find those. Like they created 2 0 days that then would have to be patched and so on.
Okay. Fair enough. I'm preaching to the choir. This is terrible. It's like an echo chamber. But I in our company we use 2 products. Competitors. Why? Don't ask me. But one of them is Echo and the other one is ChainGuard. And we really are like dogged about, I don't want to have any vulnerable libraries. End of story. If it's not patched, it's not going to our code, blah, 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 blah. So it's been, we get like, we definitely do, I think, a fine job of staying on the latest and greatest patch, whatever version library.
Good hygiene, good practice.
We find regularly that it breaks whatever it was that we were working on before. And we have to go back and we have to slow down and say, so we can't, okay, we need to go revisit what code do we do? And maybe that's what we need to do. Maybe Sunil's right. Maybe we do need to slow. And maybe that's just the nature of doing it. But I'm just letting you know, when you're patching libraries all the freaking time, it will break things. It happens. Right. It happens to us all the time.
And I'm just saying, when you have this elite AI red team own you next year, Mario, when you say, okay, we're going to go that way.
It's not going to be a CV. It's not
we have it. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that's kind of good news. Most of the stuff you're going to fix is going to be free. That's the way it's always been with security, but nobody really wants to sell that. Yeah. It's like go into G Suite and turn off 45 things down there that you didn't realize were on.
I try to argue against your point and realize I'm part of the group, man. I'm sorry, right? This is the problem. We agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's good news to me. I mean, if we can't afford to waste time on shiny object chasing, that's a good thing for the industry.
You keep saying this thing CVE. What is that thing? I mean, at this point in time, I can imagine the number of vulnerabilities that were discovered that have basically no CVE attached to it because the system at this point is broken in terms of if you find 1,500 vulnerabilities in a piece of software that people are actively using today, does it really make sense to even put a number to all 1,500?
Yeah. Well, I remember somewhere deep in that Hugging Face breach, it went to this was funny. It made an exfil channel, or actually it was like a C2 channel via pastebin, right? But in order to do it, it was contacting, in order to reach pastebin, it specifically said it was reaching out to pastebin.service. And my jihad against TLDs, right? GTLDs. So I'm like, there's a risk register entry right there. Why the hell can this system get to .service TLDs? That's free.
Know. I still like my recycle bin.zip, buddy. But anyway, that's for your deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, the going back to the notion of patching for a moment, again, if you have 1,500 vulnerabilities that are found in a particular piece of software, does it really matter that you can have the bed jumping or whatever? It's like, look, that is so much exposure. There's so many different ways that, so many vulnerabilities that are found here. I don't really want to tell you. It's almost like what does it really matter that these are kevs or not kevs or whatever? Like 1,500 vulnerabilities in one piece of software at once. You're like, just go patch.
Maybe. I don't know. The board doesn't care about patching. The board cares about not getting hacked. Not getting hacked. And there's not a direct correlation between kevs or CVEs.
But, yes and no. But at the same time, note that I mentioned that in passing, the Patchmageddon paper from JPMC is making its way to a lot of boards.
Yeah. I mean, it's great as long as we're all playing fake security and living by luck. But if we start getting all auto-owned all day, every day, we're going to have to get real. That's when it gets action. Yeah. And, yeah. So look, on AI, one of the things we want to talk about was...
Well, actually, one comment though. The notion that you're getting auto-owned, that is effectively the Hugging Face incident.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is.
No, that's my point. Yeah, exactly.
He's right.
I think it's going to make it to where we can't play around anymore and waste time on patching.
And it's becoming boring. It's terrible. Nobody can have fun anymore in cyber.
And let's just be clear. There were 5 companies, at least 5 companies that we know were affected by both the Hugging Face, by the OpenAI and Anthropic thing, of which only one of the 5 caught it.
That's right. And by the way, if you read the fine print, in my interpretation of the Anthropic paper about the 3 companies, it sounds like one of those isn't picking up the phone.
Yeah, that's right.
It sounded like they're trying to contact all 3, but only 2 they really get through to. So
that's right. Yeah.
That's going to be really interesting about that other one.
Right.
And I think that's probably a pretty archetypical array of the world.
Yeah. So again, you're starting to get auto-owned, and only 1 out of the 5 companies realized that they got owned.
No. But in the future, they're all going to know because they're not going to have a test solved. They're going to have all of production halted. So that sucks. ZDR. A really good friend of mine wanted to talk about zero data retention. Brought it up. I'm glad you did, Mario. So, yeah, right. So ZDR, zero data retention, the idea there is that with these models, you demand that they have zero data retention, and you run a prompt and they respond the answer and there's no logs whatsoever. And damn it, I demand this because I know Anthropic will leak my super secret important business details otherwise. So the reason it came up is kind of the TPRM thing. So customers of AI-enabled companies, on their questionnaire, they ask, are you doing zero data retention? Kind of implied in that is maybe that they might demand it, might not. Be careful. Sometimes they're just asking the answer of, no, we do not do ZDR. Here's what we retain. Sometimes that's okay. Always try that if that's what you do. And then likewise, as AI middlemen, when we work with frontier models, we may or may not demand them to have zero data retentions of the aggregated customer feeds and everything else that we're putting through there. I'll start out on this by saying, like, as a company that's in this world, in this ZDR world, our answer has been, and well received, we know we have 30-day logs at frontier models that we work with. We know that because we use them, and they're really important, and they help us figure out what the hell's going on. After that, they're subsumed and they're purged. We don't do the logging internally. We could do it with a model broker, right? With some middleware that's routing things between different models. So maybe we could do that, and then we'd have the 30-day on-prem in air quotes, meaning we would own the 30 days of logs instead of, and it would be aggregated regardless of which model we're feeding to, versus having that 30-day period at each of those. If somebody comes along, maybe it's USG, and says, no, that's completely unacceptable, then we could do that. We could say, that's fine. It'll be harder to troubleshoot, but it's not the end of the world. So far, I feel like the industry is like, oh, okay, I get that. I could see why you'd want 30 days. And where is it? What are the controls? Okay, good. It's just as good as the fact that your admins can get into the, into the API connections and the backend code anyway. So I haven't seen where in the non-government world, or I should say non-blind regulation world, I haven't seen an issue where companies are absolutely demanding ZDR who actually understand it.
Well, okay, so the people who send out the questionnaires aren't necessarily people who understand the intent of the questionnaire. So it is
with science, Sunil. You just start saying big words and they're like,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I think any sort of explanation, you say a no, you got to give an explanation, and as long as the explanation really looks plausible and doesn't look completely AI generated, then it seems to pass the sniff test from on their end. I want to, the bigger concern around zero data retention, there are two big concerns around zero data retention, one of which is, I think, mostly bogus, and the other one is not. So one is the view that, hey, someone's going to use it to train their models. Let me almost assure you that if from the frontier model companies, they really don't care about your data.
Can you say that again, Sunil? Say that again, please.
From the frontier model standpoint, they really don't care about your data. They do care about whether the response was good or bad, right? But they don't really care about your stinking data, because more than likely it was already AI generated by somebody else anyway. Okay, that's it. But the zero data retention policy that we've seen change, especially by like Anthropic, for example, is really a government sort of mandate. It's the way that it's like a compromise that they had to make to tell the government, hey, if we see potential usage that violates that directly ties back to the concerns that we have around, let's say, distillation, or around the usage against U.S. targets and such, then we want to know that. So that's kind of the reason why they're having to do the zero data retention. It's not because they want to suck up your data and use it to train your model.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, but like, to your point, the people that are issuing that question, well, actually, here's a better, in like the Fortune 500 world. Oh, you have AI involved. Okay, I got this extra addendum to the questionnaire. That's kind of how it goes right now. And one of them is, do you offer zero data retention? It doesn't necessarily mean we won't do business with you unless you do, I think. What are you guys seeing? Have you pushed enough to figure out whether it's a deal breaker? Are people saying it's a deal breaker? Is it just exploratory?
I think what they've asked for us, from us, is just, we use Anthropic. So they want to make sure that we have an agreement with Anthropic around zero day retention. We need to provide this as evidence that we've done that. I think that's I think that's where it's going to go for us.
Yeah, but the question is, if you turn around and say, no, but we have 30 days on, it's intentional, here's why we do it.
Correct.
Is that a deal breaker or not? That's the big TBD.
And I coming from a company that dealt with data all day long at Snowflake, and I want to just double down on what Sunil said. And now as an AI company, we're all of us in some AI space. I don't really care about the customers. I mean, okay, I do care about your data, Mr. Customer. I want to protect it. End of story. I don't want to be exposed. I don't want anybody access that shouldn't be accessed. But from a business, that's important. Rule number one. But the real thing that I want to know is, are you giving me thumbs down or thumbs up? Is my AI agents, the things that is giving you answers to, are you happy with those? That's really what I'm looking for. And if you want to call that training the model, okay, well,
you're right.
Fair enough.
Evals.
But Sunil's right. I mean, that is really what we pay attention to. And I think
we've been waiting. We're all in the eval business. I mean, like, if you can't do anything with AI, meaning be able to ask the same question repeatedly and make sure you're giving a good product back. And we were just having this conversation, and it's precision and accuracy, right? Like going back to what is that, 6th grade math or whatever. And those are two separate issues. One is, are you consistent? Are you giving the same answer every time? And that's probably like job one. Because it depends what the hell you're doing with AI. But if you're writing an article for somebody and making slides and whatever, but making sure that, especially if it's important decisioning information, like, do I need to patch this, that you give the same answer every time. And then a very tight, close second is, are you giving the right answer? So consistency is important.
Thumbs down, exactly.
And that's it. And evals are all about being able to look at the logs. You have to have it. So if you are asking of your vendors, hey, do you do ZDR? And someone told you need to demand ZDR, and they say, yes, sir, we do ZDR. Then the next time that you have some feedback and they go, oh, yeah, I see what the issue was. It says here, yeah, okay, we're altering our prompts, and say, well, how the hell did you know that if you had ZDR, right? But don't use it to trick people. You should understand it yourself. And if that means you're okay with them not being able to look at what you've done, then, maybe revisit your question there.
You might, Jerry, repeat that last 30 seconds you went out.
Yeah. Sorry. But so if you're demanding ZDR of your customer, and then they say, yeah, we have ZDR, and then you come back and you say, hey, we had a problem with the prompt recently, and can you look into it? And they do, then they don't have ZDR. And You also, I should ask yourself, maybe that's okay. And if you're willing to accept that, then don't beat them up about it to begin with.
Yeah. Next time somebody asks you about ZDR, you just say, hey, yeah, I know ZZ Top. I'm familiar with ZZ Top. Sure.
Well, there's a way to have a truthfulness test, which is you ask a question: do you and all your vendors have a ZDR approach or something like that? And of course, if the answer is yes, okay, if they come back and say yes, we have, then they're lying, right? You know that they haven't really understood the question,
or they don't understand the question. That's right.
Yes.
But the good news is you don't understand it either. So it's a detente, and that's what TPRM is.
Well, again, it's just more of a are they even paying attention to the question test? A test to see whether they're even paying the question to because the answer should be like universally no. Because
No, the question should be like, no, we don't, but let me explain why, and then that's great. But you're not even asking that. Yeah. All right, guys. We didn't dodge AI on this episode, did we? We didn't talk about anything that wasn't AI, but that's okay. I think it's due. So next time we're going to talk about TPRM, though. That's good news. Stay tuned for that. I'm putting together a blog that I'm going to pop out, and I wanted to get through our episode so you guys could educate me first about exactly this and the red team first and AI-based red teaming and how you're Hugging Face proof in the future and that sort of thing. So look for that. But otherwise, thanks so much, guys. And looking forward to speaking with you both very soon.
Thanks. Have fun.
Bye.